أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على ما لا نبي بعده سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحابه ومن اهتدى بهداهم إلى يوم الدين فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي لا تؤاخذني مما يقولون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون واجعلني خيرا مما يظنون أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome as usual to the House of Dua. Today we are coming to you with a reminder of one of the duties we neglect in life. We neglect and we care less about it, whereas in fact, it will earn us enormous reward. And that duty is visiting the graveyard, visiting the home of those who are dead, also known as the cemetery. How many of you take out time in your schedule from time to time to visit the homes of those who have died? I'm sure not a large number of you do so regularly. But it's important for us to know that it's a duty that we owe to ourselves and to those who are dead. That's why it's important for me to remind you about it today. I know many of you, when we come to the issue of death, we are very scared. And yet, we want to enter Jannah. But how can you get to Jannah if you don't pass through death? So there are some of us who are so scared of it that when they hear the mention of it, they flee like a sheep fleeing away from a lion. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Qul inna al-mawta allazi tafiruna minhu فَإِنَّهُ مُلَاقِيكُمْ. That death that you are fleeing from, Allah says, surely that death will meet you. And you will meet it. Because it's after that death, ثُمَّ تُرَدُّونَ إِلَىٰ عَالِمِ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ فَيُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. It's after death that you have an opportunity to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will show you your deeds. Because we don't want to see those deeds. That's why many of us are scared. Because we have not sent anything forward that will be of benefit to us when we meet Allah on the day of accountability. Unfortunately, that's the condition of many of us. In the same way, there are many of us who are scared to attend a janaza. There are many of us who are scared to participate in the burial of a dead person. Let me ask you a question. If you are so scared to participate in the burial of a human being like you, what if people get scared when it comes to the time to bury you? And they stay away. Who is going to bury you? So you see, it's a duty that we owe to one another. You don't need to get scared about it. As a matter of fact, the same way we prepare and rush for salat when we hear Hayya ala salat. The same way we get ready to respond. That's how we are expected to get ready to respond when we hear the announcement of the death. We are expected to participate in the Salatul Janazah. We are expected to participate in the burial itself. We are expected to participate in carrying the dead body to the grave and whatever is connected with that funeral service. The Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam says, whoever does that will earn what he called Kiratan. What is a Kiratan? They ask him. He says, like 2 mountains of rewards, like 2 Mount Uhud joined together. But if you are not able to get to the level of burial and you only participate in the Salatul Janazah, then of course you earn a Kirat. And what is a Kirat? A chunk of reward equivalent to a mountain. You see that it's a reward that we get scared away from time to time. And dear brothers and sisters in Islam, this is why I want to remind you today that it's important for us to once in a while visit the graveyard. These are people who, until yesterday, were living like us. They are either our brothers or sisters or fathers or mothers or relations. They were living like us yesterday. They were eating as we eat. They were drinking as we drink. They were planning for the future as we plan for the future today. And they were hopeful about the future itself. They didn't do anything wrong to die. They died because their time was up. Just as very soon, your own time will be up. That's why it's important for us to take this duty very seriously, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. Because from experience, we have found that whereas in the masjid we may see about 10 or more lines of prayers, when it comes to Salatul Janazah, we only see 1 or 2. People are scared to attend. And when we come to going on a visit to the graveyard, you only seldom have people there. Very few, if any at all. That is not good. Visiting the graveyard has enormous reward and teaches us a great lesson. That's why in the hadith narrated by Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, which is reported in Sunan Ibn Majah, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam was quoted as saying, "Kuntu nahaytukum an ziyaratil qubur, fazuruha, fa innaha tuzahidu fi dunya wa tuzakiru akhirah." The Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam once upon a time told the Sahaba, "I used to prohibit you from visiting the graveyard. But from now on, go on visiting the graveyard. Because the graveyard will diminish your desire for the materialism of this world, the pursuit of this world. And it will also remind you of the Akhirah." So that's one of the powerful lessons we learn when we pay a visit to the graveyard. It humbles us. You stand right there in front of those who are now under the ground, people who were standing like you before. And in some cases, it's so serene. You don't hear any voice. You don't hear any footstep. You don't hear any noise. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared in the last verse of Surah Maryam, chapter 19 of the Holy Quran, وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُم مِّن قَرْنٍ هَلْ تُحِسُّ مِنْهُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ أَوْ تَسْمَعُ لَهُمْ رِكْزًا. How many generations before have passed away? How many people have we taken their life or destroyed? Visit where they are buried, for example. هَلْ تُحِسُّ مِنْهُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ. Can you see any trace of any of them? أَوْ تَسْمَعُ لَهُمْ رِكْزًا. Or do you hear any whisper of them? No. It's not possible to hear that. Why? Because they have gone. There is a barzakh between where they are and where we are right now. They will not have opportunity to come back here. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, so going there to visit is an important responsibility on our part. That is why in the case of those who perform the Hajj, even though Ziyara Kabru Nabi Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam is not part of the Hajj, but then people are encouraged and they set out time after the Hajj or before the Hajj to pay a visit to the gravesite of Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. And when they are there, they are expected to humble themselves. You will see a writing on top of it from Surah Al-Hujurat. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَغُضُّونَ أَصْوَاتَهُمْ عِندَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ امْتَحَنَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُمْ لِلتَّقْوَىٰ لَهُم مَّغْفِرَةٌ وَأَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, those when passing through the graveside of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, or while he was here in existence, those who are with him, who lower their voice and humble themselves, those are the ones who have true taqwa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have tested and find taqwa in them. For them is everlasting reward. The lesson we learn from that verse is that whenever we are going through a place where people are buried, even if it's not the burial ground of the messenger of Allah. We are expected to humble ourselves. We are expected to remain subdued in our behavior. And we are expected to think about what it will be when it's our turn to stay in that position. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, again, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever visited a cemetery or a graveyard in the past or recently? Or you have not at all? If you have not, you are missing out. Definitely you are missing out. Not only are you missing out a reward, you are missing out one of the most powerful lessons in our existence. Nowadays, everybody get carried away with dunya, a place where we are going to spend a very short time. But in the akhirah, where we are going to spend the longest time, we are neglecting it and we are not prepared to learn anything about it. This is not so good. Visiting the graveyard will enable you to think about the akhirah. Will enable you to think about the life in the grave and what it entails. It will enable you to come back home and change your character from being bad to being good, or from being good to being better. That's the lesson we learn when we visit the gravesite. But many of us neglect it, thinking that it's only a place for those who are dead, or thinking that those who have died and they have gone. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, don't think like that. Don't think like that. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ يُقْتَلُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٌ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. Do not think that those who die in the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala die in vain. No, they have not died yet. Actually, they are living. They are living. The only difference is that you don't know. You don't know what is happening. That's why you think that they are dead forever. In Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a similar verse. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِندَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Do not think that those who die in the service of Allah, do not think that they die in vain. They have died and gone forever. No. As a matter of fact, they are living. In the Rabbi Yeruzakun. They are living in the presence of Allah. They are receiving a great deal of enjoyment. They are being sustained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will be wrong for us, therefore, and for you to count out your dead father, your dead mother, your dead brother, your dead sister, or your dead relation, or even a dead fellow Muslim, for you to count him or her out thinking that he's died and he's died forever. No. Just as we have a good relationship with them when they were in life, we are also expected to have good relationship with them when they are dead. And one of the ways by which we shall establish that relationship is, if it's not possible for you to visit the graveyard, go ahead and pray for them in your home or in your masjid every day. And or find time to visit the graveside and remain solemn and pray for them, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may be, as a result of your prayer, may have mercy upon them. My dear brothers and sisters, do not think that everybody who died has died in vain. There are many of them who die in the service of Allah, especially those of them who died having kalma shahada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Do not let death meet you except in a state of surrender to Allah. Many of our relations who have gone, they died Muslim. Therefore, it's our obligation to continue to pray for them. Especially those of you who have lost your parents. The dua of a waladu swali, that is a righteous child, whether it's a girl or a boy, that is the dua that will reach the parents in the grave. Therefore, do not forget to pray for your parents, even though they have died. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them and have mercy on them. Oh Allah, have mercy on them the same way they had mercy on me when I was little. Whether they are alive or not, that's a powerful dua for our parents. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, when it comes to the issue of visiting the grave, there are many of us who are reluctant to do so now, not because they wish not to do so, but because they are scared. You know why they are scared? Our graveyards, especially in the Muslim world and some developing countries, are in the forest. They are in the bushes. They are neglected. Nobody cares. And that is not the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We are not encouraged to leave our dead ones in the bush, inaccessible. Where did this culture come from? It has to be corrected, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. This is why people are scared to visit the graveside of their parents, of their dead loved ones. It's important, therefore, for me to use this medium to call on our people back home. Come to the Western world and see how graveyards are maintained beautifully, to the extent that some people may even feel free to sleep there. But back home, our graveyards are occupied by snakes and lizards and lions and lionesses and other huge animals that scare human beings from going to the graveyard. Because of that, people don't even know where their parents or loved ones are buried. It's a wrong attitude. Therefore, let's turn this around and get those forests down and then plant flowers around those who are dead and make the place beautiful so that everybody will be encouraged to go there and pray for them. Because of the fact that we neglect our graveyards, that's why people now have the culture, the wrong culture of burying the dead in their homes or around their homes. Because everybody loves to have a connection with his dead ones. Therefore, if they could not go to the graveyard because it's a thick forest, they want to bury in the homes so that they can have access readily. You won't blame them for doing that. But it's not the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. It's wrong. It's more preferable to bury at the burial ground, at the cemetery, than to bury at home. Because whenever people pass through the cemetery, they remember to pray for the dead. How many people pass through the graveyard of your father at home or your mother? And how many times do you remember to pray for him or her when you pass through the grave? You take it as nothing. You don't even remember to say, Ya Allah, forgive my parents. But if your parents is buried at the cemetery, even if you forget, somebody else will not forget. Those who are going through may recite Ayatul Kursi or Kun Huwa Allahu Ahad for those who are dead, or may recite the dua for visiting the grave. Assalamu alaikum ahla diyar minan mu'minina wal muslimin wa inna insha'Allahu bikum laikun. Nasalullah lana wa lakum al-afiyah. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of you who are the occupants of this graveyard. Men or women, believers who died and got buried here. Very soon, we shall join you. That's a powerful dua that will humble you. Thereafter, when you come back home, to change your character to being a good person. That's why it's important for us to visit the graveside. But many of us neglect it. We ignore it. We get scared of it. We should not get scared. No, we should not get scared because these are our relations. These are human beings like us who were living yesterday. Their time is up, so they are gone. And very soon you will join them. So, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, let's develop the habit of praying for those who have gone. Let's find time out of our busy schedule to attend a janaza when we hear somebody has passed away. Let's find time out of our busy schedule at the weekend or so to visit the graveside, to pray for those who have passed away, and to wish them well, and then to learn a lesson from there also, that very soon it will come to our turn, and thereafter we will now come back home and readjust our conduct to fit the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the example of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, so that we will be hopeful to meet Allah on the day of accountability. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man kana yarju liqa rabbih falyamal amalan salihan wa la yushrik bi ibadati rabbih. And whoever is looking forward to meeting Allah on the day of accountability with pleasure, let that person do what is good right now. Now, visiting the grave is one of the good things we have to do. And let that person not associate any partnership with Allah in worship, because Allah will not forgive those who associate partnership with Him. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, I hope I have given you a good message, and I expect you to prepare to pay a visit to the nearest graveyard in your area and to pray for those who have passed away and to learn a lesson from their passing, a lesson that one day it will come to your turn. Therefore, do not neglect the duty of participating in funeral service or going to visit the graveyard. Because if you do, somebody may neglect the duty of participating in your own funeral or visiting your own grave. And we don't want that. Rabbana taqabbal innaka anta samiul alim wa tub alayna ya maulana innaka antal ghafurur karim. Rabbana اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.